Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views in News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about another developing story, and that is about the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where we have learnt that India has sent more troops, and the number is in thousands, mostly from the BSF, and primarily they have been assigned various tasks where they are keeping an eye on the Kashmiris through various checkpoints and house to house search. And then obviously we all know about the ongoing atrocities committed by the Indian forces, so they needed some fresh blood there. Now, as we all know, that as far as the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, that is one of those areas where for every 10 people, imagine, for every 10 people, every 10 civilians, there is a man in uniform to keep an eye on them. Just imagine, this is the most densely military populated area in the world. We all know what's been going on for the last so many decades, especially post 1947, ever since the Indians in fact occupied this particular land where the Muslim majority was living in peace. But now we all know that after the abrogation of the Article 356, I mean we have 350, we have in fact seen that the special status of the Kashmiris that was snatched away, and eventually more military was in fact sent there to look after the affairs and especially the law and order. But as we all know that the world is quiet, the media isn't reporting about that. I mean, I'm talking about the international media in particular. But having said that, the current situation is nothing less than an open jail for the Kashmiris. Before I introduce you to our panelists, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that.
The roots of Akhand Bharat have been shaking for decades as the successive Indian governments failed to pacify the slogans of getting independence from India from Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Indian Punjab. However, rather than neutralizing these situations by proving India as a humanly secure territory to be lived, the Indian government is systematically increasing its suppressing tactics in these areas and digging the grave of its claim of being the largest secularistic democracy. In this regard, the Indian government recently started to deploy thousands of paramilitary forces in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is already a heavily militarized zone, and for decades, at least 500,000 soldiers are hazardously present in the occupied territory. According to Abhiram Pankaj, a spokesman for paramilitary Central Reserve Police Force, more than 2,500 troops have arrived and deployed all over the valley. According to media reports and resources, around 5,000 extra paramilitaries from India's Border Security Force were deployed in the occupied territory. This deployment was done after the numbers of target killing of police, migrant workers from northern Indian states were increased in the occupied territory. Prime Minister Imran Khan on 8 November 2021 reiterated during a meeting with OIC's Special Envoy for Jammu and Kashmir, Yusuf Al-Dubey, and the Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Tariq Bakhir, that a just settlement of Jammu and Kashmir dispute following the United Nations Security Council resolutions and the wishes of Kashmiri people remained a prerequisite for durable peace and stability in South Asia. The Prime Minister also underlined the importance of the OIC's principal position on the Jammu and Kashmir dispute and the resolute support of Islamic Ummah to the just struggle of the Kashmiri people for their inalienable right to self-determination.
Now, to talk about this issue, let me quickly introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Air Vice Marshal retired Ijaz Malik Saab, Senior Analyst. Sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Dr. Waleed Rasool Saab, known Kashmiri leader. Thank you so much, Waleed Saab, for your presence. And from United States of America, we have with us Dr. Zulfiqar Kazmi Saab, who's a Senior Analyst. Kazmi Saab, pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time as well. But let me start off from you, AVM Saab. Now, already there were around 1 million, that is what the number is. I mean, if you put together all the law enforcement agencies of India that are placed inside the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, sir, whether you talk about BSF or regular army or paramilitary or other law enforcement agencies like police or border security force for that matter, sir. So what is this need of sending more fresh troops? And that number isn't in hundreds, that is in thousands. What is the need? What is the urgency now?
Thank you very much, Faisal. As you know, when do we need to induct fresh troops in a battlefield or in a war theatre? there are two probable scenarios. One is, once your existing effort or your existing forces, they have accepted their failures to achieve their military objectives, or secondly, you have certain new objectives in your mind and you want to induct fresh forces to realize your future designs. In this particular case, where the troops, as you mentioned in your intro, that almost 9 to 10 civilians have one armed soldiers standing on their head. So in that scenario, where there are classically not two forces employed against each other, but these are most of them, they are unarmed civilians, starting from children, older elderly people, and women. And there will be a fraction of that which might be resisting with whatever means physical they have available to them. So in that kind of scenario, if they are committing their fresh troops, that means that their current effort is frustrated, and it shows actually a failure on their part for having been there in the valley over decades with so many troops in various forms. And now if you dovetail and read it with the other development of the State Investigation Agency, SIA, which they announced recently, in addition to the already available NIA and CID or CIB, you name it, and they have all those agencies there. So what was the requirement for having an additional investigation agency? It is just to victimize people, to demoralize those people, and to create and sustain a kind of pressure on those unarmed people who are actually struggling for their justified right.
There were also reports that, I mean, let's call it infighting among the troops, that maybe is frustrating for them. Maybe they have no idea, because somebody is maybe from the Tamil side, somebody is from Calcutta, stationed in Kashmir, sir. And interestingly, I mean, normally people go and visit their families on festivals like Eid or Diwali and so on and so forth. So, but in this particular case, we've also learned that the Indian soldiers are fatigued now. So perhaps this could be another reason, sir?
Fatigue is one thing, and second thing is, in any armed conflict, to employ your troops effectively, you have to have a crystal clear objective for them. In this particular case, they are just fighting to survive in that so to say hostile environment where the indigenous population is against them. So they really feel frustrated, or they really don't feel probably up to the mark as per their oath or as per their commitment to uniform. And these heterogeneous troops, as you have mentioned, from amassed from all over India, some of them even might be thinking at officer level, there are reports that they are thinking that if this can happen to Kashmiris, it can happen to any one of them back home in their own states also.
And there were also reports that certain troops or certain battalions were also moved from the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and from certain other fronts to LAC. Perhaps that could be another reason?
Could be, because these are different, options that they keep, visualizing. They keep, making new strategies to deal with the issue. But at the end of the day, it shows and it reflects their, failure.
Failure and frustration.
Frustration.
Primarily. So your take on the same point, since you know the inside stories. I mean, what exactly is going on? What have you heard from your friends in the Kashmir area, sir?
Thank you. I have forwarded you a complete structure of 3 corps of the Indian Army in Kashmir, and you may collect from the Basit. Number one, it is not first time when they landed first 111 Brigade on Srinagar Airport on 27 October 1947, and then slowly and gradually they kept increasing the armed troops in the Kashmir. Now you have to see 2 things. One is what is their strategic goal and how they are tackling the issue on tactical and the campaign level. Now the entire theatre has been changed, and you have also witnessed recently it is not only the resistance and the resilience, but sometimes when we won the match against India, the movement was again back just with a one stroke of the this match. So you know the sentiment is alive, number one. Number two, when you are increasing the density of the Indian troops, what you want to achieve? Can you cage the sentiment with the increasing of the troops? They have failed so far. And number two, it is not only the movement which can be caged by the troops, which they have been used since 1947 till date. It is the sentiment which works when there is the odd situation and the turmoil. And thirdly, recently an article was written by Bhattacharya from the Calcutta. He says, it is not only the Kashmiris you lost, but you lost 220 million Muslims also within the India. It is an article written by Indians herself. And number fourth, when you are seeing the what is the modus operandi of the Indian strategists who are working within the Kashmir to cap the resistance, they themselves analyze that this is not the solution. But since she needs to cash her constituency in the vote bank, particularly the rightist government, so that she wants to make that constituency very much enlightened that we are controlling the Kashmir. They are managing definitely, but they can't manage the sentiment despite, because they have only option, that is the military option. When we say that they are occupying, what they are occupying the land by the forces, our land, the homeland of the Kashmir, but not the people. And they want land, not the people. This is the issue. They don't want the masses. And the masses are struggling against.
So it's Kashmir, not Kashmiris, what
yes. And number two, when you are seeing the whole area, you may distribute, it is 120 kilometers in length and 84 kilometers in breadth, the entire valley. And you have deployed 3 corps already with 9 divisions and an armored corps. It is a total military and plus paramilitary forces. I have forwarded the entire composition of the military, paramilitary, it is brigades where they are deployed and what is their capacity.
Why would they need an armored brigade there or an armored
Definitely you are controlling, your only Indian only constituency is armored forces, their military forces. Because the actual constituency is the masses of the Kashmir who are always struggling against India. So you have to solely and wholly rely upon the armored forces. So it is their compulsion. Now, recently there was a 10 members delegation from the OIC and you know that currently the Kashmir committee is a
the focal person
very
of
much
Kashmir,
vibrant,
yeah?
very much vibrant, and they are doing a lot for the Kashmir. It is first time that Parliament is playing its vital and vibrant role. And we have briefed them and we provided them suggestions that you should make some concrete steps instead of mere statements. For example, I gave them 3 suggestions. Suggestion number 1, you must back the Islamabad's position in post-5th August situation, personally at the OIC level, then individually it will support us. Number 2, you have to launch a study to study the relationship between Islamic countries and the India, what is their interest. If we can provide an alternative, we may gauge their support internationally. Number 3 is an important thing that they supported us in UNG, 4 people. This size, this support shall increase in the next UNG meeting in New York up to 10 at least.
Okay.
And Secretary General himself accepted that we supported the Rohingya, this Gambia, the Gambia we supported and we provided them the finances and the funds. And then they launched the campaign against the Rohingya in the United Nations Human Rights Council. And it was an oxygen for we people that the state of Pakistan, despite the geo-economic and geopolitical compulsions, they are leaving no stone unturned, because I am personally witness in the parliament, in the parliamentary committee, where you have an opposition, you have all leaders from PMLN, from People's Party, from MKM, and they were with the one voice that as far as the Kashmir cause is concerned, we are one, we have no any friction. And that was messaged by people from the parliament, that when you are talking about the state of the Pakistan, they have geo-economical compulsions presently, but they are leaving no one stone unturned what they can do.
So we are
Despite
doing
our
whatever is in the given
expectations are lot.
capacity. That's
Yes,
true.
our expectations, because when I am talking as an Kashmiri, then my expectations are very high. But when I am talking as a scholar of strategic cities, international relations, then I have to see what is the geopolitical, geo-economic, and geostrategic compulsions. So I have to rely upon that.
Now let's see what Dr. Zulfiqar Kazmi Saab, who is in United States of America, has to share with us. Kazmi Saab, now you must have heard what earlier we were talking about. This already such a military density. I mean, when you look at Kashmir, I mean, it's unbelievable. The amount, the number of troops that are there, it's unbelievable. Now they are in fact deploying more. And as AVM Sub said, that whenever there is a certain strategic ambition, that is perhaps, again, there is an agenda, they have a certain mindset, and they have a planning. But sir, when you talk about the top strategic level, you talk about the middle operational level, or you further go down and you talk about the tactical level, sir, do you think that at all the three levels, the Indian military has been failing consistently, despite the fact that there are around 1 million troops deployed in that little part? But interestingly, sir, as the winter is approaching, things are getting different. Do you think that the army or perhaps the Indian government is thinking of something really serious? Because Amit Shah was there, sir, about a month ago, and after his visit, we have seen that even when India lost the cricket match to Pakistan, I mean, the way they behave, the way they have picked up the Kashmiri students and the Kashmiris in general, I mean, it's unbelievable. This is not at all something which any human would even think of doing, sir. But they have picked up people, most of them are missing. You talk about the extrajudicial killings. I mean, so much is going on. Your take, sir?
Thank you very much, Faisal Rehman Sahab, for asking me. But I think Islamophobia is at the peak of, in India. And the situation is grave, but it is always grave. What India has done, they have ruined all rules of humanity. They have gone against the principles of self-determination. They have never seen what human being is looking for their peace and prosperity in a region. So this is very, very important, that what we should think, that what India is doing right now. Deployment of forces in Kashmir, it's a continuous process of India. And as you have mentioned, that how many people have been deployed just on 10 people, on one, person is deployed over there. So it's so, shameful for India that how they could talk about democracy and secular India. Their image has been distorted all around, in the world. So this is truly something that people have to see. And the situation we are discussing now is a present and clear situation that what India is looking for. So India is looking for that how they could tackle and handle Kashmiri people in Kashmir. Meanwhile, they are facing so many issues in India. They had farmers movement. They had, and most recently, what was happening in a university. It's also one very clear example of Islamophobia in India. India is no more secular. India is no more democratic. India is no more a country which can, respect the values of humanity. So this is all what people are witnessing. They are not accepting and respecting the will of the people. Will of the people is self-determination, and United Nations and all other, organizations always, they focus on Kashmiri people's, basic rights, fundamental rights. But what India is doing, they are doing everything what is what they can do in Kashmir against Kashmiri people. So this is the situation. Human rights violation is at the peak of India. The- this is what we have to see and what we have to respond as a international community. While living in America, what I have seen that most of the people in America, they think that India is doing wrong. But the government relationship with the Indian government, it's something very, we can have some question on it, because America thinks that the free market economy of India is helping America. But it's not a free market economy. We have to see how people could be empowered, how people's voice could not be suppressed, in one country. So India have set up. Yesterday, I was watching one discussion, and I was shocked, and it was so alarming. Agenda of the those organizations which should speak about the human rights violations. But what they were saying, it was mentioning about the Islamophobia, and they were talking about that India has a best example. India has a best example. I quote their words. India has a best example of Myanmar and Israel. And if a country is thinking that they can follow the example of those countries, those nations, who they are violating the human rights, who they are violating the all principles, and who they are violating the United Nations all resolutions. So this is international line of control is not acceptable, for India. Pakistan is keeping its view that how Pakistan could understand and how Pakistan could help Kashmiri people for raising their voice, for making their voice at all forums. And as we heard in the beginning, there's a spokesperson of Pakistan. What they were talking about, they were getting the attention of the world, that how world could focus the attention to those issues which are purely humanitarian issues, which based on rights of the people. So India is not accepting and respecting all those principles, all those values, all those democratic norms which they should follow if they claim that India is a democratic. But India is no more democratic country. India is no more secular country. They are promoting the Hindu philosophy, and Hindu philosophy is they want to prevail in the Kashmir as well. But the Kashmir, as I was, mentioning one incident of yesterday in a university, what was happened? Even Iqbal, Allama Iqbal, what he said, he gave the Tarana of Hindi Tarana of India, but they did not accept the photo of Iqbal in the auditorium. So it was happening all around in India. There is a one, philosophy, and that's how they can empower Hindu philosophy, and they are, they are in promoting all those things, which we can understand that what is happening in all over India, Islamophobia, violation of rule of law, even,
And there are
rules
certain,
of
I mean, there is a certain agenda, and on top, it feels that the government of India or the government of RSS, Modi's government, let me put it this way, they are making sure that whether it exists or it doesn't, I mean, it should be promoted to an extent that people should start getting scared if you're a Muslim. That is unfortunately, because the way they blame Muslims, the way in fact they label them as terrorists, as somebody who is you know, a criminal by birth, perhaps. I mean, this is the kind of agenda they have set. Now, coming to you, AVM Saab, there was this very interesting story around 30,000 Sikhs gathered and voted for the referendum regarding Khalistan. And in the second phase, around 10,000 came from all over UK. And I'm talking about UK. So a lot of reports were made. The media really, you know, highlighted that. But don't you think, sir, when it comes to Kashmir, unfortunately, it's not treated the same way? Perhaps it's the weakness of our diaspora over there, sir, or maybe the efforts are less, or perhaps it seems that, you know, the global media is not interested in highlighting anything that goes against the regime of India.
Yes, I fully agree with you. There is a lack of integration and synergy in the various factions or various groups among Kashmiri people. And this has been a problem. You know, even for the Pakistani diaspora in general and Kashmiri brothers and sisters overseas, there is a problem. Either they are not active, they are not politically vibrant in those societies, they are just, you know, busy in their own economic or business activity, whatever they are doing there, and they don't make a concerted effort jointly to, you know, exert pressure. Whereas the Khalistan movement, they have picked up well, and the credit goes to their leadership, who have you know, galvanized various factions and, you know, various groups. Whereas in case of Pakistan, support is there, but we have really not been able to build up post Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech in the UN General Assembly and the you know, effort which were, you know, done at his level. We have not been able to capitalize on that, and we need a sustained struggle, and in that struggle actually I think we need to gel with the Kashmiri people, because after all this is not a bilateral issue. There are three parties to this, and the Kashmiri.
So this is what we say. Now when you hear what the Deputy Secretary of State, when she was here in Pakistan, or even in India prior to that, I mean, she was very categorical, and she said that, well, this is a bilateral issue, it should be sorted out between these two countries. I mean, United Nations has a different stance. Americans, I mean, which matter the most, they have a different stance. So don't you think that is going to be a huge disadvantage for Pakistan, actually, and as well as for the indigenous Kashmiri people?
Actually, Faisal, you are aware of this. I am personally a witness. I have interacted in Washington State Department. Once Indian origin people, they are making policy for India and Pakistan and subcontinent, then whatever you know, Mr. Biden is saying, or his you know, secretaries are saying, this
doesn't make any difference.
It is just what has been cultivated over the years by the effort of Indian diaspora, who is working as interns, who is working as staffers, who is working as policymaker in the corridor of powers in USA, which matters in this, you know, world of today.
Especially the academia, sir. I mean, every other Indian is the head of any department in all the top-notch universities out there.
Unfortunately,
you know, that's where the narratives are created.
Unfortunately, we have very talented Pakistanis who are part of American system over there, but they are not contributing anything towards, you know, enhancing the image of Pakistan, or enhancing the concerns, or highlighting the concerns of Pakistan and Kashmir issue over there. That is the problem. Whereas, as compared to those successful Pakistanis who are there for decades and lifetime, and they have reached, you know, in science and technology, medicine and engineering, but there is none, I would say, who is there as a policymaker or a staffer or heading a think tank where you shape up opinions. That is where we lack. And this is a failure, I must say.
I'll just give you two examples, sir. Nikki Haley in the UN, and then the current vice president, I mean, Kamala Harris. I mean, these are two examples.
Don't you think that our people are, you know, equally capable to rising to those levels? It is just that we have not concentrated on that. Our people are intelligent and hardworking, and, you know, frontline students in American universities, they are focusing towards the careers which bring them a lot of money and job satisfaction, rather than investing them like India has done. And they are now, you know, harvesting the product of that investment which they made 3 or 4 decades back.
But that makes a lot of sense, sir. Another important point, Dr. Saab, and that is about what has been happening and what the future is all about. I'll just give you 2 examples, sir. Elon Musk lost $50 billion in one day. $50 billion. Can you imagine? In one day because of the shares that went down. At the same time, what we have also learned that, certain companies or which have made certain applications, they are richer than most countries, even Pakistan
5
for that matter.
companies, yeah.
Just imagine.
Yeah.
So, sir, when I see Narendra Modi, instead of going and giving a speech in the United Nations, I'm not talking about this year, the year before, he would prefer to go to Silicon Valley. And most of the, whether you talk about Pichai or other people, they are controlling the apps. During this World Cup, sir, whenever you will put on the Pakistani channels, you'll see products, related to, the advertisement I'm talking about. Same old products, cold drinks, obviously, they are there, couple of other banks, phones, etc. But when it comes to India, sir, it was 80 to 90% about the applications. That is the kind of strength they have gained, sir. And this is what the future is all about. Don't you think, sir, this is where we are lacking, and this is going to give us a lot of problem in the future. I want you to answer that, sir, but before that, we'll just take a short break and then I'll get back to you, and I want you to respond to this question. We'll just take a short break here. After the break, we'll return. Stay with us. Welcome back. So,
Sir, you have seen history's testimony, there was never a parity between India and Pakistan. But still, we survived, we struggled, and we have our own foreign policy presently, number one. Number two, when you are doing the critiques in certain things, sometimes you need a booster to encourage your people. For example, when you are talking, the Colonel Sahi, the defense analyst, a great defense analyst of India says that the people of Pakistan have always bridged the parity because masses of the Pakistan are all soldiers. So this is an compliment from enemy to you. And number three, when we were liberated from the clutches of the British colonial powers, our economy, both India and Pakistan, we were having the same currency for 2 years, 1947, 1948, and there was no steel mill, there was no any sort of asset which was transferred from India towards us, and you have to keep these things always in the mind. And number third important thing is, when you are talking about the diaspora had played the remarkable role, particularly in the USA, Dr. Fai. Last year, they met 28 embassies of the Pakistan. Now, what you have to do? You have to do something on the state level. For example, when Modi came in the power first time in 2014, he visited 82 countries in 4 years. That means only one in a week, 3 visitors, foreign visits. And same must do the Mr. Imran Khan. He is the catalyst who can mitigate the differences of that diaspora, who are doing the remarkable contribution for the development of the Pakistan. Because when you are dividing economy, you have only 3 areas in which remittances from our diaspora plays a vital, rather a running bullet role in Pakistan's development and the economy. So you must give always, when we are criticizing each and everything, we must give credit also. But we must say it is not enough. We have to do the lot. Number one. Number three, when you are talking about the Kashmir dispute and its issues globally, internationally and regionally, there are, sir, 3 parties, important parties. Number one is Kashmiri struggle, and they are sacrificing red hot blood to keeping the sentiment alive.
Correct.
Now, what is our duty? who have freedom? Can we use those tools of freedom to represent that red hot blood internationally? Now sole responsibility, sir, lies upon you, lies upon sir.
It has to have a collective effort, sir.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is not, nothing works in isolation. The role of the Kashmiri people, that is remarkable, because they are under Mayhem, they are under the clutches, they are under huge and intense density at armed forces. Still they are saying Pakistan Zindabad. And I don't think that you might have seen the entire history that you are under the clutches of the India and you are with the flag of the Pakistan. Number one. Number two, we have been failed to represent that red hot blood internationally, and we must accept.
How long will we take to do so?
Despite we might be free.
Almost,
but there will be always, because the resources and resources vary. India has the huge resources and we have the minor resources. You may say, well, now what is an option? I will give you the deduction. Deduction is always quantity will remain from Indian side, but you have to work on quality. That is the capacity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, sir, last comment from you, Zulfiqar Kazmi sir.
Thank you so much. And I think that if we have a strong standpoint, then resources, we should not talk much about resources. I think that Kashmir and Kashmir issue, Pakistan and Kashmiri people have a very strong standpoint. So we need to enhance our advocacy and diplomacy, and at Capitol Hill we have to involve to the people, and we should give them better understanding what is Kashmir issue. I don't agree with everything what my other colleague was saying, because I have seen lack of efficiency of diplomats here. So this is very important. Imran Khan is very vibrant. He is completely saying what Kashmiri people is looking for. But I think that diplomats should act upon according to the advice of the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And in India, what is happening, the whole world is witnessing, but we have to bring more to tell to the people that what is India, what is the ugly face of India. They are having Islamophobia, they are violating the rules of humanity, and they are going against the values. This is, if we are...
Thank you so much, Kazmi Saab. I'm so sorry I have to cut you here, sir, because we're totally running out of time. But once again, it was a pleasure having you, sir, in the show. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your presence.
Thank you,
and it's always great to have you, sir. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 8:05 p.m. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.